Hello and welcome to Move the Line Prop Drop Show. I'm Ryan Noonan, back with my friends here to talk about the best way and the most profitable way to bet on NFL football, and that is Player Props, live here, 2 p.m. Eastern every Friday, keeping the train rolling through the Super Bowl, giving you our favorite player prop looks and taking your questions. So if you're hanging out with us now on YouTube, subscribe before we get started so you don't miss a show. Lots of other great content here on the 4for4 YouTube page. Smash that like button. Goes a long way in helping us out. And jump in the chat. Let us know what your favorite prop look for Week 17 is. Any thoughts on a play you want to get our takes on? I'll try to get to as many as we possibly can here at the end of the show. Joining me here, as always, from Mexico, Connor Allen. How we doing?
Good. Have not started drinking today. A little bit of a slow start this morning. So
no tequila yet?
No, I mean it's almost time. I mean, after the show, I should have been fired up a little bit before the show, but wasn't up for it this morning. Had to dig through these props. There's not a ton out right now, so I really tried hard to find some stuff that I really liked.
Yeah, we're talking here before we kicked off and went live. Technically, as far as like our 4for4 subscribers go, Connor and I have pushed out 0 plays. We had a few last night, went very well. 0 current plays for the weekend right now. A few looks we'll talk through with the man behind the Mayo Media Network and the Pat Mayo Experience. It is Pat Mayo. We're also just kind of bemoaning the lack of stuff that we typically like. How are we doing today, Pat?
Doing well. I have 2 that I've played so far. One of them just dropped off the board, but like we were talking about, it's likely to re-pop up here in a minute because nothing actually affected him from the game outside of the opposing starting quarterback with Mr. Blau, David Blau. He's back. Didn't realize he was still in football.
Did not know that David Blau was the 4th-string quarterback in Arizona either, but here we are. They've had a rough go of it there in the desert, and it's not going to be any easier. But yeah, I imagine those things come back right around where they are. I have another look in that game I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on too when we get there. So again, I want to remind folks, still 2 episodes of Move the Line each week, both available here on YouTube and in podcast form, wherever you consume podcasts. This is the Prop Drop Show. Connor and I are joined by John Daigle on Wednesday evenings, 7:30 Eastern, typically. Been a little bit earlier at times, mostly because of my schedule, but that's a little bit more game previews, sides, totals, things of that nature. Again, get all of that where you can find the podcast or here on YouTube. Also, another unique YouTube channel, 4for4 Bets. Original content there every day. Looks on the NBA side, more college hoops, especially as the NFL starts to tune down a little bit. So subscribe to both those channels. Lots of great content there. And again, even though we are winding down in the regular season, that's more relevant for fantasy. Who cares? We still have 6-7 weeks of actual football to bet on here. It's a great time to get a betting subscription at 4for4. Gets you access to literally everything on the site if you are still grinding all those other things, and then all the other sports. Every article, every tool. We're covering NBA, college hoops, MMA. Continue to have more stuff. We'll be, kind of including some of our golf stuff from BetSperts Golf a little bit over there too, particularly in the Discords. It's really where you want to get in there. That's where Connor and I push all of our picks through.
Wait, Connor has golf picks?
Connor does not have golf picks. No, but I will have golf picks, and it will be. I'm excited. Golf starts next week, and finally get in there. Connor will bet golf, but the only time Connor touted a golf pick was when he tried to convince me to bet on Nasty Nate Lashley to repeat in Detroit a couple of years ago, I think it was. So yeah, we don't take Connor's golf picks. Did not go well, Connor. No. So no golf picks there. But again, the Discord is where you want to be. Can't make it any cheaper. It is $34 from now until the end of February to get the betting subscription. It's typically closer to $300 for the full season. Obviously, we're not giving you a full season worth of stuff at this point. It ends in February. But again, you're going to get a lot of value. Hopefully you just win that back this week. I think we can more than recoup that $34 in this week. So 4for4.com/plans for the betting subscription. Still doing DFS stuff as well. TJ Hernandez, John Daigle, still pumping out all that stuff all the way through the Super Bowl as well. So if you're playing single game stuff in the playoffs or that short slate stuff, we'll have all that covered for you as well. All right, Connor, I'll let you get started. I know no official plays, but again, we're definitely going to be giving you live lines because we haven't bet any of these. Looks like Pat has a few, but I want to talk through a few with the guys. We'll get some tackles at the end. Again, they're just before we went live, like 5 minutes ago, they posted 3 tackle props from the Browns. That tells you a little bit about how the tackle market goes at times. There's really no rhyme or reason. They didn't even give you the other side of the game, it's peculiar, but we'll get there when we get there. But Connor, first play, week 17.
Yeah, they're scared. That's why they're looking at your record after you start doing projections.
And we had the Caden Ellis.
They're shaking in their boots.
So good about Caden Ellis, and for some reason, he had played 95% of the snaps all season in that role, 70% of the snaps last week, and he hooked us. We lost by a half on the Caden Ellis play here last week.
He's a scrub anyways. Never.
I feel I was watching that because I had bet on that too. You convinced me on it. I was like, oh no, he's going to get to 8 here. And it looked like he had made a tackle they didn't give him credit for on the final drive.
You're in it. This is what happens. This is the once you get in these streets, Pat, it becomes a different viewing experience. You're like update, refreshing the screen, like he was in on that play. Like there's an assist there.
Yeah, like I'm watching the game. It's like I'm pretty sure that's 55. I think this is working for us. I think this happened. It's like no, it didn't happen.
No, did not happen. So yeah, we were trending well. Should have got there, but I don't know why they decided to give him part-time work. But hey, here we are. It's week 17. We got to worry about this on the defensive side too, with these guys maybe playing a little bit less or, trying to be careful with that as well as we get in here in the next couple of weeks. But Connor, start us off.
Yeah, and I do want to mention that we're doing something a little different this week. Normally, I'll release kind of simultaneously a couple props in the Discord at the same time as we're doing this. I have not released anything yet, so these are live. Will be posted in the Discord after the show, but wanted to give all the live listeners here a chance at them first. So my first one, I'm going to go Devin Singletary under 47.5 rushing yards. I know he's been crushing as of late, but now he matched up against the Bengals. Since DJ Reader returned full-time in week 12, Bengals 4th in run defense EPA, 4th in explosive run rate allowed. They've really only had one blip in like those games when they played the Chiefs, but they held Ramondre to 38 yards on 13 carries, Rashad White to 38 yards on 11 carries, Fournette to 44 on 10, Nick Chubb to 34 yards on 14 carries, and Derrick Henry to 38 yards on 17 carries. I also think there's like risk of James Cook continuing to split work, and they're going to not be as efficient. And then I think there's also a chance where the Bengals come out here and make the Bills not be in constant positive game script here. So I think that in this spot, you're probably going to see less volume than normal. There's a chance where James Cook still gets his, and probably not that efficient. So I thought 47.5 was just a little bit too high. I think this should be closer to like 40. Yeah,
I can get behind that. Pat, any initial thoughts? What do you have Singletary at?
I have Singletary on it. Now I have to go run my numbers.
Sorry.
But I mean, logically, I think that makes a ton of sense. It's sort of like those Eagles passing props that we were smashing the first 10 weeks of the year.
Yeah, I get it. DJ Reader, questionable, I think. So I'm not quite sure what to make of that. We also have an extra day of practice reports for them. And I think that's probably a big piece of the handicap, but we'll have to watch and wait and see, because I haven't heard that he is not playing. I was surprised to see that he was questionable, but that kind of ties into one that I have, and I would love to know that DJ Reader is in or out before I make it too, because I think it definitely impacts the way that the Bills kind of approach this game. So
where the hell was this guy at? Not even. Oh, there he is. Devin Singletary, 42 rushing yards.
Okay,
that's what I'm seeing. That's
I like it.
Yeah, I don't see any Brian Robinson rushing props right now, but I know that Prize Picks was hanging a 65.5 on him.
Oh,
if that's the real number, I love that over with Antonio. I mean, whether Antonio Gibson was going to be in or out, he is officially out as of now. I still would have loved that over, because he had 15 carries against the 49ers in the first half last week, and they were not sniffing a lead in that game.
No, that's a great look on the list. I'm sure Connor as well, because we are definitely, Connor has got these pie in the sky dreams of Brian Robinson cashing our offensive rookie of the year tickets here with 6 tutties in 200 yards per game here to end the season.
It's happening. I mean, it's like literally, I can already see it in the headlines now. Brian Robinson, 200 yards and 6 touchdowns in the next 2 games. All the media is like buzzing, just like, man, this guy got shot in preseason, came back, and is just a beast down the road. Washington makes the playoffs, maybe on the back of Brian Robinson. I mean, it's a lock. It's going to happen. I mean, I've never seen a better lock at this point in the career. He only needs 200 yards.
Daniel's telling us 65.5, still up on Prize Picks right now if you are playing over there. Because they have such arbitrary rules around what qualifies for it, you just made the case for Brian Robinson comeback player of the year as well. Can you come back in your rookie season? I think maybe you can. I don't know. That's why comeback player of the year is the most ridiculous award, because some guys just come back from sucking, right? Like you just come back from being terrible for multiple years, and I don't know. It's a really weird award. Pat, is that B-Rob look your first official play, or did you have another one?
I mean, if that number is available, because obviously you have to parlay it with something at Prize Picks if you want it. If that's available at a sports book, that would be a most definite over. Even when I had Antonio Gibson in, I had him projected at 82 rushing yards in this game. So without Antonio Gibson, I assume they're not going to be like, you know who we need to use more of? Jonathan Williams. Hopefully that doesn't come to that. So, 20 plus carries against Cleveland Browns sounds pretty good for me. No, my official play is going to be over 6.5 more times that Connor's internet cuts out.
Is it brutal right now? What do we got? We're running on the resort Wi-Fi right now. So
it's a little, it's been better, but it's,
All right, let me see what we got.
No, I'm actually going to take Drake London over 58.5 receiving yards based on what we've seen from him with Ritter under center against a pretty soft defense, one that can attack you, but still pretty soft on the back end. And he's getting like over 40% of his team's targets. I mean, he's crushed this number the past 2 weeks with Ritter. I don't think the matchup is all that difficult to begin with. So just volume wise, it feels like Drake London needs to get over this number as long as he plays the entire game.
Yeah, in a soft spot. I mean, this Arizona defense is pretty terrible on against the pass, against the run, and when you're seeing like even a low volume, seeing like 42% of the target share, pretty easy for you to get there. So yeah, I like the Drake London look as well. I think it opened at 52.5 and got jammed up immediately, came off the board, and then came back up at 58.5, which I still think is a viable play too. Pat, do you have what would you play Brian Robinson up to? Say, the sports books open him up at a different number than 65.5. Do you have like an up to number?
Yeah, I have an up to 72.5 as a very strong over 65% winner play.
Yeah, I would put him in that spot too. And I still think it's a good look. It's a good matchup. All right. I'm going to stay in the same game that Connor did to start, because I find the Josh Allen passing yard number to be pretty interesting. And it's actually interesting for a couple of reasons. I think it just is, he's been underperforming as of late in comparison to early in the season where they had a massive pass rate over expectation. They've definitely been skewing more balanced. You can make the case that it's been matchup related, that it's been elbow related. I think you can make the case the last couple of weeks that it's been weather related even, right? Like they didn't really need to push in Chicago. The wind was an issue. It was really cold. We're going to have a game where, to Connor's point, I think the Bengals push them to a different degree than they've been pushed as of late. And I think you're just going to see more attempts here. And I want to get this correct because it's all over the place. Let me find passing yards. Pretty large discrepancy from book to book, depending on what you're looking at here. Let me see. Where am I at? Yeah, Josh Allen is out there. It's moving a little bit. So it looks like the lowest now is up to 247.5. That's on DraftKings. There are 255.5s out there, 253s. Actually, Bet Rivers still has a 242.5 on Josh Allen. I like the over on his passing yards here. I think he is going to be forced to drop back, like I said, a little bit more. Obviously, I feel better knowing that DJ Reader is in for Cincinnati, knowing that they probably are going to have a little bit more difficulty on the ground. I think this is just kind of a get right spot for Stephon Diggs, who struggled a little bit. Just, again, the nature of this game in prime time, I think both these quarterbacks are going to be, we're going to have 4 quarters. There's no like concern about these teams and their motivation here. Both teams really need to get seeding, number 1 seed up for grabs for both teams. So over 242.5 live now on Allen, on Rivers, I think is a play for me.
Yeah, I'm at 255.5. So that number, when you say at the different sites, actually makes a ton of sense. That's exactly on the number for my projection.
Connor, any initial thoughts on Allen? It kind of pairs well with your Singletary play.
Yeah, no, I think that I think it'll get there probably. It'll probably be like high 240s, maybe low 250s, because, I mean, especially if this game goes back and forth, I mean, ladders are in play for sure. Like I think this game, we talked about it in our last show, but this is just a really wide range of outcomes where I think we were kind of unsure how these teams settle in and like how they figure each other out. But like we could see, 5 touchdown fourth quarter, and I don't think anyone would be surprised because both of these teams are just so explosive offensively. They just had their little blips here and there, especially. But I do think this number is a little bit too low. Like, normally if you were to project this number out and not like hadn't watched the past few weeks, I guess, I would have probably guessed they would be close to like 265, 270 to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. So in 240s, not even playable at DraftKings. DraftKings Caesars is juiced on 247.5. So it looks like they're taking some action on the over, even at the highest number on the board. So that'll be a play for me. So back to you, Connor, number 2.
Yeah, my second one is a fun one that one of our guys in the chat here, Brian Sullivan, brought up. Jamal Williams over 48.5 rushing yards. I know he struggled as of late. So, if you're looking at the last few games, I think they deserve a little bit of context. Blowout loss to the Panthers, and really underwhelmed in kind of like middling matchups against the Vikings, who are 16th run DVOA, Jets, who are 8th, Jags, who are 12th. But now he gets the Bears, 29th run DVOA on the season, 31st in explosive run rate allowed after Quinn and Roquan were traded. On top of this, Lions 6-point favorites, still have playoff hopes. And beyond that, even, we did some research on incentives. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily in play this week, but he's 150 yards away from an incentive. The team loves Jamal. The coaching staff loves Jamal. So I don't necessarily think that that's a massive factor here, but if they're up by 14 points, I could see it being a factor if they're just continuing to feed him the ball in a fantastic matchup here. So for me, 50 yards on a guy that has continued to outcarry DeAndre Swift the past few weeks and could see, 15-ish carries, I think, in that range. Has a good amount of upside and should easily get over this number.
Yeah, we're back in the dome, so we can expect a little bit more of what we've seen early in the season. Obviously, a great matchup. The Bears are giving it up all over the place. The defense has been by far the worst in the league since the trades, basically Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn. Any thoughts there, Pat, on the Lions backfield?
Yeah, I like Jamal Williams here. I would more or less want to play his anytime touchdown number rather than any sort of yardage props. And at 365 right now, it's minus 120 for an anytime touchdown for Jamal Williams. So I like that a lot.
He's in position to lead the league in touchdowns for the season, which is a wild thing. I know that's his MO, but something like this, you feel like it's just going to tail off as the season goes along. He benefited from, Henry sitting and, Chubb has kind of stalled a little bit, but they love him around the goal line.
Well, he's no different than what Zeke is, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to Seahawks Jets. For mine, I've previously discussed how, Ken Walker could see 85 carries in this game, and everyone on the Seahawks passing game, except for Noah Fant, who is actually kind of banged up, but not seriously banged up. Tyler Lockett has a broken finger. He might play. Pretty sure that Marquise Goodwin broke his wrist last week diving for a pass, and they tried to bring him back in later in the game. They threw it to him, and he couldn't close his hand on the ball. DK got banged up in that game. He's probably going to get a ton of Sauce Gardner here. So why don't we just put this all together and just say Geno Smith under 236.5 passing yards? That's a big number.
That is a big number. That is, where are we looking there? It's 236. There's actually there's a 241.5 out there at MGM.
What am I missing here?
That seems too high.
Unless DK goes for 180. I don't know where these yards come from.
It's also a horrible matchup, right? The Jets, especially in the perimeter, which is really kind of the strength of this matchup for the Seahawks, or where their offense plays well. That's just a really bad matchup for the spot. Connor, any thoughts there? I kind of like that look.
No, I was actually thinking about how to fade this as well, because I think 3 weeks in a row I've been successfully fading kind of perimeter receivers against the Jets because it's just an awesome spot here. My only concern with fading Metcalf is that he's just, DK Metcalf. But I do think that as a whole, fading Geno, you're right, they're probably not going to be able to feed enough to DK, even if he has his one or two freak plays, plus through the slot, another, 180 yards through the slot. I don't imagine that being the case. So, I think that under is a good look there for sure. And we could see the Jets run the ball 35 times here in this spot against the Seattle defense that's been awful, and Mike White's back, who I think will help him move the ball a little bit more successfully than Zach Wilson was.
Yeah, I would play, if I could find the numbers, I would play over Garrett Wilson. I'd play under Geno, and I would play over Noah Fant receiving yards, which I can't assume are a lot. Play those on those are a bad correlated same game parlay, just waiting to spike those odds through the roof.
I'm going to add another leg to it and love to see what your thoughts are in the same game. Tight ends have feasted against the Seahawks all season long.
But which one?
Tyler Conklin is 26.5 receiving yards. Had some good games early in the season when Mike White was in there, and we've seen pretty solid route participation, even with Zach Wilson for Conklin. Anytime you're getting upwards of 65, 70% for a tight end, that's a pretty good spot. And that's basically where he's been. Let me see. I think he was at 77 last week. The Seahawks are 29th on the season in DVOA against the tight end position. I think they are giving up the most fantasy points per game this season, a ton of yards. There's some teams like the Cardinals, for instance, that are giving up significantly more receptions and targets, but the yardage against Seattle to tight ends has been astronomical from like a per reception basis. So yeah, I like the Conklin play. Let me see where he's at. 73%.
25.5 I'm seeing.
Okay. Yeah, I saw it move. I almost went at 26.5. I saw it jump to 25, jump right back up to 26. So yeah, I think we're right in there. Yeah, 73% route participation last week. Targets right around the same at 17%, which is kind of where he's at in the season. Not super exciting, but pretty low threshold in the spot. And the matchup, I think, is pretty great. So
yeah,
you can sell me on.
You have to watch out for the secret of the Uzma, and he might come get you.
For sure. And we saw that a couple weeks ago, 51% route participation for Conklin. But then I think
that was a Wilson game, though.
Yeah, the last couple have been Wilson games. So yeah, I think the threshold is low, and we've seen some 50, some tough matchups too, where he's exceeded this 34 yards in some tougher spots with White as the quarterback. So I think they have some success there. You can sell me on Garrett Wilson. You can sell me even on Elijah Moore, who's still kind of running reps and has obviously showed. I know it's ugly, but it's with Wilson or with White, it's been significantly better. Obviously, he and Zach Wilson do not see eye to eye, but Zach Wilson will be in street clothes for this one and probably not throwing to Elijah Moore anytime again in his career. So
yeah, we have a comment here. Garrett Wilson up at 65.5 at an offshore. So I think that's. I don't know. I was seeing some 58.5s on Prize Picks early in the week, and those looked really nice. I think that are low 60s makes a ton of sense. I saw someone say that the last few weeks of Zach Wilson has been an audition for Mike White, and I just don't think that could have been an even better, more well said, because it's just so true. The stark difference of how well Mike White is just able to do the simple things versus Zach Wilson is just unbelievable.
Yeah, and just the efficiency of the offense is just in such a different place. So it's a little rich, but I don't mind it. That's why I just think Conklin can do it here, literally on a reception or two, because of what we've seen happen to the Seahawks all season long. So
the that number's up at 65.5 is up at Bet365 right now too.
Nice. Man, I need 365. I asked Santa for Christmas for 365. It didn't happen. So all right.
Do they have any plans to come to Illinois? Have you looked at that or no?
I have not.
I don't think they do.
Why not?
We're maxed out.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just in Jersey, I think, in the States. It's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah.
No, they're in Vegas too, I think.
Are they? Okay.
Or in Nevada.
We're halfway through. Shared 2 each. If you're hanging out with us live in the chats, let us know any looks that you have for week 17, and we'll get to those at the end of the show. Back to Connor for prop number 3.
Yeah, I got 2 more unders to wrap us up on the show here. But my first one, Nick Foles, I'm going to go under 209.5 passing yards. I mean, he just looked so unbelievably bad last week. And now, draws a Giants team that's susceptible to the run. I know we got in trouble fading the Giants last week. Kirk Cousins ended up busting our under on the final drive. If the Vikings had just stopped the Giants, on the last drive, and they scored 8 points in the final 3 minutes, Kirk Cousins under would have cashed. But now we're getting a spot here where I think this is there's multiple layers of this, because we saw Nick Foles come in against the blitz. He went 3 for 6 for 24 yards, threw an interception, and had 2 sacks. Now draws the Giants, who blitz at the highest rate in the league, play a ton of man coverage against a team in the Colts that just generally the receivers aren't very good at separating. So I think there's a bunch of layers there where Alec Pierce has struggled to separate. I mean, Michael Pittman can separate, and then Paris Campbell has been all over the place. So looking at a team that they'll probably want to run, and then if they need to throw, they're probably not going to have too much success here. I also think the coaching mismatch is massive here. So you can kind of get around some of that stuff if you have a great coach who can scheme around blitz heavy teams. I think we saw a little bit Kevin O'Connell do as well. But I mean, this is Parks Frazier versus Wake Martindale we're talking about. Parks Frazier is a nobody. He's not going to be scheming around, blitz heavy, man heavy schemes here. He's just going to throw, Foles out there and make him look horrible. So, I really think this is a good spot here. 209 yards seemed like a lot, even against a defense that on paper, their metrics are not good. I just think this spot here, generally, it'll be tough for them to move the ball through the air. Yeah.
Pat, any leans there?
Not really.
It's a low threshold, but man, it was rough last week with Foles. I kind of agree with you on the separation piece. It's not necessarily the strength of the Colts receiving core there. And even Zach Moss, not really featured at all in the passing game. Doesn't have breakaway after the catch stuff anyway, if they happen to get him in. Where someone like Deion Jackson was in there, we've seen him be able to have a little bit of juice after the catch where you can get some garbage receiving yards there from the backfields.
I had Deion Jackson over 10.5 receiving yards on Monday night.
No. He had 9, right? On 3 receptions.
And one of them was for -9 yards.
I laugh because it's painful because we've been there.
Oh boy.
I think of the was it ETN, Connor? The ETN game in Washington where he had like that one carry.
Week 1.
Yeah.
It was a props 18.5 receiving yards. He had like 22 and then caught a pass, fumbled out of bounds 6 yards, and it was a 6-yard loss. He ended up with 18 and did not hit the over on his 18.5 receiving yard prop. I mean, that was,
and it was like the first or second quarter. So you think like, oh, no big deal. He's got the rest of the game. Didn't catch another ball. We've.
Do you find it odd that he's just a non-factor in the passing game?
Yes, very strange. Sure. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, their passing game is pretty good, so you can't really fault them.
Sure, but why not add the elements? Like you don't even have to really account for it. Like they don't even mess with them.
But like if you go look up his routes run, I bet you they're really high. Like he's always running routes out of the backfield. They just never pass to him.
Yeah, it is surprising because it was such a huge piece of his makeup coming out, and obviously it's not like a Lawrence thing. They did it together, right? I mean, it's wild. On the season, and he's basically been there. He's 51% routes run on the season. Even the last few weeks, he's been right around like high 60s, mid 60s, high 50s. But his target per route run in the season is 13%, which is like bad tight end type of route participation. So yeah, it's very, very strange. And they're like bringing Mike Lacey in and throwing to him, which is the strangest thing too.
Well, I think a lot of the routes and plays that would have been designed for ETN earlier on in the year actually go to Jamal Agnew.
Yeah, that's true. They use him for a lot of the gadget stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
The Jamal Agnew and Jermichael Hasty wheel routes, like 30-yard wheel routes that they're catching are just like unreal. It's like, why can't they just be ETN?
Gotta jam it to him whenever you can. All right, Pat. What's the third look?
Okay, this one's not fun. In that Indy game, I think the only thing I would probably play from the Indy side of the ball is I like Zach Moss over 59.5 rushing yards based on the way that they used him last week. Even while they were trailing, they still ran him, which it's easier to do, I suppose, against the New York Giants. But I'm going to go to the Los Angeles Chargers. Almost said San Diego. Justin Herbert, 284 passing yards under. Since this defense has actually been good, I mean, I just don't think that there's a big need for Herbert to go back and swing it 55 times at the moment. You could almost correlate this with over Josh Kelly rushing yards, I think. Eckler's a bit banged up. We've seen Josh Kelly get his 4 to 8 carries a game. He's usually right over 30 yards. There's no number on him out there yet. That would actually be my preference, I think, because I bet you that comes in around 20.5. But those two together, I don't think that there's going to be a need. I mean, they have nothing to play for. Well, what's the point of this?
No, I like that. I mean, they've been so pass heavy, but again, the other thing the Rams do, they've been playing slow, and their games have had significantly fewer snaps than average too. So you could get there on the volume play too, where they just have fewer plays than normal, and then just some sort of balanced attack, and then unless he's breaking multiple big plays, which isn't Keenan Allen's MO, and if you don't have Austin Eckler in there to break some big ones too, kind of like it. Connor, any thoughts on that play?
No, it did seem high given the matchup and everything. I was looking at the other side of the ball potentially with a Baker under because, like you said, the Chargers defense has been playing so good. I just couldn't get myself to pull the trigger because of how good he played last week. Maybe it's recency bias, but that Broncos team basically given up at this point. So I think it's solid. Look, I mean, he's up to 200 passing yards. And like you said here, I really expect the Chargers to, kind of be able to lock him down here. They probably run the ball a ton with Cam Akers. Cam Akers probably is in the 70s, by the way. I mean, that's just, to me, that's wild from where we started in the beginning of the season to now we're getting Cam Akers 75 rushing yards or whatever. I don't even think it's that bad of a line. It's just that it's there, and it's surprising.
For what it's worth, I have Baker Mayfield projected at 176 passing yards.
Yeah. I mean, do you think this Chargers defense, I guess, I don't know, escalation or however you want to say it, is like better, significant? Do you think it's real, or because they've the last 3 weeks they played lights out?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I forget who brought it up, but since they got rid of Crooked Tillery in week 7, they've been top 3 in EPA against per play. They've been fantastic.
Yeah, and they're getting Bosa back. If not this week,
I saw he was designated to return. He's practicing. Are we sure he's going to play?
I don't know if he's playing here, but I think he's coming back soon. But I think just the prospects of them moving forward, I think, is probably super encouraging to our friend Jeff, who I'm sure is drinking the Kool-Aid pretty.
Well, he was very happy until he learned that one Mr. Tim Andercust has changed his allegiance to the Chargers now that he's given up on the Jets. So this really works two ways. One, now that he's given up on the Jets, they now have a chance to make the playoffs, which would be great for him. But if the Jets do not make the playoffs, he's going to start cheering for the Chargers, which Jeff did not like.
That's tough. That's not fair to Jeff.
It's a bad beat. That's why I'm in on like Ravens futures.
How did wait, why is he giving up the Jets? Like they're still like in the thick of things, right? Like I mean a little bit.
I mean
Mike White's actually decent.
If he doesn't cheer for them, they have a very good chance of winning.
That makes sense.
It's insane how it works. So
just hold on 1 second. Like even to go back a little bit, I know they were giving up a bunch of points, but they've played the Chargers schedule is pretty good. Like 3 points against the Colts, 14 against the Titans. It softened up. 17 against the allowed against the Dolphins, but like they gave up 27 in that stupid game against the Raiders. They gave up 24 to the Cardinals in Kyler Murray's last game, 30 to the Chiefs, 22 to the 49ers. Like they've been like pretty good over that stretch. There's some like pretty good offenses they played over that time.
Yeah, no, they have playmakers for sure. Like I said, I don't know Bo's status now, but man, moving forward, I don't know if they're going to have Derwin James for this one. I think he's still in concussion protocol for.
He is, but I would doubt that they would rush him back for the spot.
Yeah, they actually have pretty decent safety depth behind him, so they probably can give him a week. Yeah, that was a tough. He blew up Ashton Dalton.
And how does it look for like? Do you know what the tiebreakers are? Obviously, if the Chargers win out and the Ravens lose out, they would leapfrog the Ravens for the 5 seed. But I mean, conference records about the same. They didn't play, did they?
No, they played last year.
Yeah,
they did
so
not.
I don't know. I guess the Chargers would get the tiebreak. So I guess they can get the 5 seed. That is something to play for. It sounds pretty valuable right now in the AFC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Number 3 for me. I'd love to get your thoughts on this one. It's moving a little bit. So it looks like I am in the right spot here. Latavius Murray under 44.5 rushing yards. There are 45.5 out there that are juiced a little bit. But last week's a little hard to look at the box score because it was so skewed based off of how that game went just bananas. But we've seen a little bit more and more of Marlon Mack. We saw a decent amount of Chase Edmonds last week even. They're definitely getting involved on passing down, so it's definitely hurting like Latavius Murray's upside if you're playing DFS or anything like that. But like he's losing base down work to these guys as well, or at least to Marlon Mack a little bit. So tough spot against the Chiefs, probably negative game scripts. We know that like you just can't get hurt from like explosive plays from Latavius Murray. So typically when he's getting here, it is on volume, and the volume is just kind of fading away. Even last week, 8 carries for 34 yards. The week last time they played the Chiefs, 8 for 32. Even in games when like the game script is close, he's right around this number. Tough matchup against Baltimore, 17 carries, and he barely topped this at 47 yards. He crushed Arizona. There was no one else active.
Arizona's sweet Latavius won me all that money, and now he's on vacation the rest of the year.
Yeah, but you look at the last 8 weeks, Arizona's 31st in rush D DVOA. They've been terrible against the run. Budda Baker's out. Like they're struggling. So that's a great matchup. So, you were on the right side there. I just think the Lat Murray stuff has been volume only, and the volume is kind of sliding away. And then here, basically 2 touchdown dogs on the road in Kansas City just doesn't set up for a great spot for Lat Murray. So under 44.5, I think is a pretty good look.
I agree. I haven't projected right around that number, but I think your context, and given that Chase Edmonds has come back in a negative game script as well, that just bumps him off the field a lot more. Like even when they were losing in games, but it was just him and Marlon Mack, he just ended up out there, 30% more of the time. Thus that translated into 2 more carries, and you bust one against, if he's not out there to accept a 3rd and 19 draw, which could go for 12 yards because the other team doesn't care, like those are valuable when it comes down to these prop numbers.
1,000%. I mean, that's a great call up because that happens. It's like we don't have a 3rd and 19 play in the playbook. We just got to get to, hopefully a better position to punt. And that happens all the time. And like at the end of the day in props, it's not like base down rushing yards. It's cumulative rushing yards, and those things happen. So Connor, any thoughts on Lat Murray?
I was trying to figure out. I thought I saw he was injured, like limited in practice early in the week too. I don't know if those were just rest days or whatnot, but I thought he was a little banged up as well.
He was veterans rest.
Okay, yeah, so probably not a factor, but still, any rest he needs is probably less snaps he's playing. So yeah. Also, Chase Edmonds, big factor. Massive L for me this year, and betting on Chase Edmonds. But it's all right. He's come back to win us more money by now fading Latavius Murray and hopefully playing more.
We'll let you down easy on that one.
Yeah, sad day. My guy responded to me on Twitter, so I was like ready to be his #1 fan, and then he just sucks. I mean, like, what do we? I'm like one of the best offenses in the league this year. Horrible.
It's not great. It's not great. All right, back to the top, Connor. Last one. Any other looks that you like? Again, you can kind of spray us with whatever you got here.
For sure. My last one is going to be Alvin Kamara under 62.5 rushing yards. He's seen a ton of work as of late, so it's a little bit scary if he gets like 20 carries like he has been. But both of those were in massive positive game scripts and great matchups against the Falcons and the Browns. I mean, two of like literally the bottom 3 run defenses of the league. Now draws the Eagles, who have been playing awesome run defenses of late. They haven't allowed a single running back to clear 60 yards in the past 5 or 6 games. They allowed less than 40 to Derrick Henry and Saquon, David Montgomery, and both Zeke and Pollard did less than 60 yards as well. I think if Hurts plays, they blow out the Saints. I think even if Hurts does not play, I think that they have a ton of success here. 6.5-point favorites. I was interested in the Dalton under because I think that he's also been horrible, but I'm just more confident that they aren't able to give the volume to Kamara because of game script, and the matchup is a little bit tougher with Jordan Davis, kind of playing a role, and they've just been playing generally better run defense as he's returned. So that's kind of my spin on it, though. But I could be talking to Dalton under, especially with still no weapons besides maybe Olave, who looks like he's probably playing. But still, I think this spot here, you could probably like blanket bet Saints unders, but just Kamara just hasn't been very good this year. Like it's just been kind of like volume that's taken to get there.
I told you in our FFPC draft, we went hero RB with a running back that's nobody's hero, Alvin Kamara. And this is why we have not had a good season in the main event streets. So, even last week, again, ton of rushing volume in that game against Cleveland. 20 carries for Kamara. He barely got here. It was a great matchup against a terrible Browns defense. But again, like Taysom Hill's involved with 9 carries. David Johnson had 7. They gave 2 to their fullback, David Prentice. They are okay not giving the ball to Alvin Kamara. So like 20 carries last week, great volume, but he just hasn't been that dude. So I like it. This is on my list as well. It's a little light, but I think it's probably the right side. Pat, any thoughts on Kamara?
No, not really. I've been pretty anti-Kamara all season long, but the Dalton unders look especially good.
God, he's been horrible.
Yeah, not good.
He's been so bad.
How bad's Jameis?
I'm a little worried about like the Eagles,
right?
The secondary injuries, though. Any thoughts on that? I mean, that was the only reason I didn't play it was because they're not like at full strength, and they just got absolutely wrecked by Dallas, who's significantly better offensively, but.
Yeah, I mean, the corners are okay. They have some safety depth issues that is being tested here, but I don't hate it. I just think it's been probably a pretty advantageous spot all season long to just kind of short anything passing game against the probably anything passing game with Andy Dalton and anything passing against the Eagles has probably been a pretty nice setup. So yeah, it's been not great. All right, Pat, what do you got? What's consideration?
I got a few here, so I need you guys to land on the one for me. I was looking at both Carolina tight ends now that they're playing a lot of 12 personnel. Tommy Tremble's at 9.5 receiving yards. He's seeing 2 to 3 targets a game since Sam Darnold took over. That's one catch, essentially. He's beat this number. No, sorry, that's Ian Thomas. He has beat that number each of the past 2 weeks. In 2 totally different game scripts. One where they're absolutely blowing out, not needing to pass against the Lions. He had 18 yards on 2 catches last week. And the week before, when they were trying to play a little bit of catch up in a closer game against the Steelers, 2 for 20 on 3 targets. So essentially, he's just averaging 9 yards a target. So 9.5, pretty good number. Then you have Ian Thomas, who has beat 7.5 receiving yards in 4 straight games. And he's averaging 2.5, 3 targets over that span. Just since Sam Darnold has come in, these guys have been listen, they're not a major factor. They're playing like 55, 60% of the offensive snaps a piece. So they're both out there more than half the time. And if you do think this ends up in a passing situation, I like the over on both of these. I think they're just really low threshold numbers to try to get to. So I like both of those. I don't really have one preference over another, to be perfectly honest with you. I just probably play both of them in a same game parlay and see how it works. If one hits, hopefully they both hit. But the other one, Donta Foreman from that same game. 61.5 rushing yards against the Bucs. That seems like a really big number, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do we have Vita Vea info?
Not as of yet, but This is a split anyway. And if you think, and this is a big ask for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but if they can just get out to a lead in this game, we are not going to see Donta Foreman.
Yeah. We've seen, his tops 48% snap share in over a month. So you really need, he's definitely sharing. They're both kind of getting there. But again, like you said, they've been winning games and they've been in, even like tightly contested games. The problem is we've seen no ceiling offensively from the Bucs all season long. Like it's wild. Like we're waiting for it to happen. We're just not happening. This is a nice spot for them. JC Horn's out. I think that helps the Bucs. Maybe they get the passing game going a little bit, but it's easy to tell yourself a story where Foreman is definitely not getting the volume that we've seen in like what we saw last week against Detroit, where they get up to, crazy lead and they could really kind of just drive it home over and over again. So yeah, I don't hate that look at all. It's pretty
the
high.
other thing too, Vita Vea is practiced on a limited basis all 3 days this week. So that would lean him towards, at least as of now, the more optimistic side of playing. And even when he missed against the Bengals a few weeks ago, like P. Ryan was the Bengals leading rusher with 20 yards.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And the Hubbard stuff too is enough there where you just have other outs for it to go wrong, even if the game goes in their favor, even if it stays neutral scripts, very well could struggle and get chopped at 12, 13 carries.
This goes back to the just kind of discussion we had about Latavius Murray as well. Now that they're use Blackshear a little bit more as well, that there is no chance that Foreman is going to get any of the softest, easiest carries in 3rd and long against these coverages. He's just simply not going to be on the field for those snaps.
Yep. Yeah, I like it. You're selling me on it for sure. Where are we at on that?
So there's a Panthers same game parlay for you.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a great same game parlay because, like you said, like the Bucs have to be winning by a lot. So you can take like a Bucs minus 6.5, and then like parlay that with some Donta Foreman unders, and I mean that's just like such a great bet. But because if they're winning, I mean I just was surprised like how much they mauled like Detroit in the trenches last week. Like they just dominated. And I don't think we've seen that much of just like I mean Detroit just hasn't been screwed like that in a while. That was just amazing. It was wild.
That's really been, I think, at the heart of their turning their season around, and they just got absolutely destroyed. It's turning out to be a pretty decent offensive line there for Carolina, but it might not matter. Yeah, pretty much across the board, Foreman. Although, again, FanDuel off market 56.5, so it tells you a little bit too. Like getting the 61.5 on DraftKings under on Foreman's probably a pretty good look. He might be moving.
I'm looking at it right now because I'm trying to play a same game parlay. It's 61.5 at Bet365 as well.
Yeah,
nice.
MGM Caesars actually juiced significantly to the under, so they're going to be moving off of 61.5 here. But shortly.
If you just play the Thomas Tremble same game parlay, it's plus 260, just those two. And if you factor in Foreman's under, it's plus 650, just those three. It's pretty good.
That's solid.
And I know I think he's been a guy that's on your, do not touch list typically, Pat, but DJ Moore is a pretty good spot without Carlton Davis in the lineup. Carlton Davis is a corner that typically will shadow your best guy. Carlton Davis is, I think, doubtful for this game. Again, DJ Moore is kind of similar to like a Drake London where it's just not a lot of passing volume, but he has such a massive share of the volume. Could be a decent spot for DJ Moore. If someone needs to add, they're dying for a fourth leg here and they want to get as much of the Carolina passing game in one bet as they possibly can. I think DJ Moore is in a decent spot here, especially if you think the Bucs can maybe turn it on here as well. I think it's a nice spot for him to have a softer matchup.
I just worry about the Bucs being able to turn it on, to be perfectly honest with you.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
That's more or less the issue with all of this.
Yeah.
We have a comment here to throw in a Brady interception from Scampers, in your same game parlay. 2 interceptions in each of the last 3 games, and then another pick against the Saints there. So 4 straight games with an interception. Not sure they get it done or Carolina gets a pick here without JC Horn, but I certainly don't hate it with considering how they're playing right now.
Yeah. Looking at it too, like Godwin's in that game at 68.5. The over on him is a pretty nice look. I really like that. It's one of my strongest leans of the week in terms of the projections is Godwin over his number. So Godwin over 60. Let's try to fill this out here. We'll do a same game parlay. Why not, right? So we have Foreman under. What do we say? Brady pick?
Brady pick?
Yeah, Brady pick. This Scamper suggestion. Love it.
And we can throw Bucks money line onto there just for fun. Quarterback props, interceptions, Tom Brady. Okay, so we have this is where I end up losing all my money, isn't it? Godwin over 68.5, Tommy Tremble over 9.5, Ian Thomas over 7.5, Donta Foreman under 61.5, Bucks win, Tom Brady over 0.5 interceptions, 40-1.
Let's go.
I'm on a fire on this too. We're riding as a squad here. The same game parlay on the show.
Pat, you've been on worse outright golf winners at 40-1 than that same game parlay.
Oh yeah.
So, why not? Right?
About to be a whole lot more.
All of them. Cannot wait to give back all
Did they release odds for that yet?
I think Caesars is out with some TOC odds. Golf is back next week, Connor.
And also join the one and done if you haven't. FantasyGolfChampionships.com. $125 for the year to play. It's $4 a week. You can win $50,000.
One and done's best. That's great. Great way to get into the golf. Connor actually last year joined our one and done that we ran internally at BetSperts late.
And I caught up. I hit a couple outrights.
Yeah.
I was just taking your outright. So, it didn't count. I was just like, I didn't know what I was doing. But
it worked.
I caught up.
You got in. Yeah.
You why don't you play in this one then?
I will, man. Maybe I will. Let's do it.
Max it. 5 entries.
So
if people out there are serious about getting in, you can have up to 5 entries. If you go get your spot right now, again, fantasygolfchampionships.com, and you screenshot me your entry on Twitter at the PME, I have a few free entries to give away. So I'll put you in a draw for a free one to go on top of the one you already paid for.
Love it. Great. Golf is, again, if you're taking out football's the best. It's great. Golf betting is amazing.
Golf betting is more fun.
There's so many ways to do it. Again, we're going to sell you on props here, but there's just so many ways to bet on golf. And it's a great sport. And it has similar cadence where you have a couple days to build up into the tournament starting. You have all the pre-tournament stuff, and then you can bet in tournament matchups, finishing positions, winners, it's getting so.
Yeah, but here's how it works. Let's say you have $100 to invest. That means you bet $100 on a prop or a side or a total on a Sunday, on a football game, or a Thursday night. It's 3 hours of entertainment. You can take that $100 and split it up between 3 golfers for a much larger payout, and it lasts from Thursday through Sunday. So your entertainment value on those dollars spent through the roof.
Assuming your guy makes the cut, sometimes your fun can end very.
That's
sure, but you get 3. You don't have to bet $100 on one guy.
Yeah, you get 3 shots. Yeah, at least.
If you had $100 this week for the Tournament of Champions, I'm looking at the odds now. It's oh shit, I can bet Tony Finau. I can put $30 on Tony Finau. What the hell is $30 pay? $600 if he ends up winning. You can go him. You can bet Colin Morikawa at 20-1 with another $30. Then you can throw 40 on Scotty Scheffler at 12-1. There is no cut this week, so you do get your 4 days.
It's true. And you get to watch golf in Hawaii. It could be worse. So, all right. Let me see. What do I get at the end here? Give you a traditional prop. We talked about it a little bit. I think you guys are on it too. Let me see where we're at price-wise. Unfortunately, I like to bet a lot of the attempts, completions, receptions, type of stuff. And we are very limited out here in the market right now. Although we have a new one. Looks like Leonard Fournette's rushing attempts is out here. But I really like Kenneth Walker rushing attempts here. 16.5. Basically minus 105 across the board. Before we started was juiced 15.5. Looks like it's moved a little bit. They gave him 26 carries on a bum ankle last week in negative game script. We just talked about, Pat made a great case for the Geno Smith passing yards under. It's just a really bad spot to throw into this Jets defense. The Seahawks are still alive. if, for playoff hopes, like they need Walker to get going here and to really kind of, neutralize this Jets pass defense. I think they're going to need to lean on him. 16.5, again, is 10 fewer than they gave him last week against the Chiefs here. So 16.5 minus 105 for Ken Walker, I think is a good look, waiting for some more of those to come out here. Again, very limited tackles and assists out there currently, but I'm going to give you some looks. Typically when I do this part, we don't necessarily get like projection edges. I'm giving you some stuff at the top of the board where I think the guy is going to exceed expectations. Again, 4for4.com/plans. It is $34. I promise you we can make $34 back this weekend on tackles alone. Not just off of what Connor's doing. Again, that feels like super touty, and I should have like gold chains and like chest hair popping out. But we can get you your money back. $34. Old school. You're going to be old to remember the old 800 number stuff that we used to get back in the day for betting touts. But all right, tackles and assists. Rashad Evans. I'm actually going to give you two Falcons here at the top. Rashad Evans, linebacker for the Falcons, probably going to be at like 9.5. 10 plus in 8 of 9. Before last week's kind of quiet game against Baltimore, Baltimore only ran 51 plays. That happens sometimes against Baltimore. The home scorekeeper in Atlanta is the best in the business. They are giving out the highest rate of assists per game in this tackles and assists. We don't care if they get the solo tackle. Again, it's subjective, and there are scorekeeper edges to be exploited. And the Falcons are one of the places that we want to do that. They are giving out 30.6 assists per game, which is basically 10 more than league average. Overall, they're giving out the third highest rate of assists. So great spot. Richie Grant is another Falcon that we're going to do this with. He's probably going to be at 5.5. He has 6 or more in 8 straight. For some reason, they just continue to open Richie Grant at 5.5. Again, we're going to take advantage of the same scorekeeper stuff. I don't think the matchup here against David Blau really impacts this a ton because you're still seeing, even when they had Trace McSorley, they were still getting off a ton of plays, still playing fairly fast, and really had kind of like the same pass rush splits that they had even with Kyler in the lineup. So I don't think the Blau issues here are affecting us at all. Luke Masterson is a linebacker for the Raiders who might not get hung here because they haven't typically been, this is kind of the problem with tackles as well. They have great spots and they don't really post everyone. The Raiders have had a dude retire instead of taking every down snaps for them, a linebacker. They've had 4 guys get lost for the season, and now Masterson is the last man standing and has a pretty elite tackle rate. So if he's even hung at like 8.5, 9.5, this guy I haven't projected for almost 11 in this spot against the Niners, who should run a ton in the second half, and linebackers against the Niners have fared fairly well. Also good scorekeeper data at home for Las Vegas. Jalen Petrie, safety for Houston, probably going to be at 7.5. He has been a monster of late, 9 or more in 4 straight, plays every down. A safety for the Texans, who have terrible tackling linebackers. So the safeties get a lot of opportunities, which is why he's been getting a lot of tackles. I've projected for almost 9. Again, I feel pretty confident he'll be posted at 7.5. Again, very favorable scorekeeper data in Houston as well. The Patriots, we talked about Juwan Bentley last week. We gave him out here at 7.5 at plus money. I think you're going to see 7.5 on him again. He's got 10 or more in 3 straight. And the Patriots have the biggest discrepancy between home and road assists granted. They do not give out assists to the visitors, 12.7 per game, which is significantly lighter than the 26.5 that they give the home team. So Patriots guys are in really good spots. Bentley played 100% of the snaps last week. So he's been like 85, 90. Early in the season, he was like 65. He's just kind of trending up. So I think that's why his number is kind of lagging behind. So those are some of my favorite looks just without anything being posted. Again, get in the Discord, 4for4.com/plans. Get the subscription, $34. You can get all the official plays. Went 2-0 last night with Micah Parsons under 4.5. He had 1. And then Monty Rice had like 12 or 13, I think, on over 8.5. So going to continue to crush it. So, all right. What else? Anything else? Let's get to some listener questions here before we wrap up. We got 5 minutes or so. Make sure I didn't miss anything at the top. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. This is, My favorite things to do every week. We love your questions. Gus Bus from Brian, over 39.5. Connor, this has been a weekly bang for you. This has been pretty profitable.
Yeah, I mean, literally against the Steelers last time, 13 for 66. I guess my only concern would be that the last two matchups against Cleveland and Atlanta, I mean, those are just awesome spots, like literally like top 3 spots. And the Steelers, I wouldn't say they're necessarily like a bad spot. They're just like, they don't pop there. And we know that it's going to be Dobbins is like the 1A and then Gus is the 1B. And like, you just need the volume. Like in this spot, you need 10 plus carries. And like, I don't think that's always guaranteed. We saw 7 against Cleveland. They fell behind a little bit. So I think that's kind of my only worry with this one. Like I definitely will go back to it in other spots because his prop is too low every single week. It should probably be like 45 here, but yeah, in better matchups, I like it.
I have him at 29% of the team's rushing share this week. And that factors out into projections as, let's see here, 8 carries for 43 yards.
Still enough to get it done. Yep. Yeah, he's been, 34, 27, 32 the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, even if you're, Pat's kind of right in the middle of that. And it's been enough for Gus to get it done. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad matchup. I have no problem going back to that. Let's see here. We got Fire Sports on Tyreek Hill over yards whenever the line comes out. Yeah, the Patriots secondary is like decimated. I haven't seen any official stuff before we jumped on here, but like basically the majority of their starters have not been practicing all week. So they are definitely going to be running out some secondary guys in the secondary. I have no problem with the Tyreek number. Probably going to still be in the mid 80s, even though Teddy's here. So no problem with that. Pat, do you happen to have access to your Tyreek number?
Oh, yeah. 96 yards.
Okay.
But, I mean, Teddy.
It's been not great.
How did Tyreek do in that Bengals game earlier this year? When I just remember him Teddy came into the game and just bombed it to Tyreek on the first play. And then that was basically everything he did.
Yeah, it's not a bad strategy.
Yeah, he was in that game. I don't know what the split was between Tua and Teddy Bridgewater, but he was 10 for 160 in that Thursday night game that they lost. Teddy played the next week. Did he play the next week against the Jets? He did, right?
Yeah. Teddy played the next week.
No, Skylar Thompson played.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
He got knocked out early in the game, like the first play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. So, yeah, I mean, I have no baseline for Teddy Bridgewater right now.
Yeah, I think to Fire Sports point, I think that if we catch a lower prop than normal, I'm totally fine hitting the over here. But if we get like the normal prop, then I'm probably just not going to play.
So Teddy did play the majority of the next game against Minnesota.
Did he? But he didn't start that game. He came in injured because Skylar Thompson got hurt in that game.
Correct. Yeah, and then Tyreek went for 12 for 177 on 15 targets.
So maybe the over is most definitely the play here because we have Teddy Bridgewater, 14 for 23 against the Bengals in catch-up mode. No receiver had over 55 yards except for Tyreek, who was 10 of 160 on 14 targets.
Yeah.
So he Tyreek's the only guy that Teddy Bridgewater throws to.
Yeah, that's a monster game great matchup against Minnesota, but yeah, he definitely crushed in that one. Waddle had a nice little day too, 10 targets, 6 for 129. But yeah, Tyreek seems to have had some pretty good games with Teddy. So smart, seems like a good idea. Throw the ball to Tyreek every time you drop back. So
maybe over receptions once that comes out.
Yeah, we are going to get a discount, I think, on both receptions and yards because of the quarterback.
7.5.
It's probably 6.5.
I would say even over 7.5. I mean, that's not ideal, obviously, but I think he gets there.
Yeah. I bet it's 6.5. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Same game. Lucas wants to know it's not open currently, but thoughts on Jacoby Myers over receiving yards. Probably does open in the low 50s, sometimes even like the high 40s. I don't know, man. Like it's been so bad offensively in New England, the passing game. I mean, like Jacoby needed a pretty freak tip ball helmet type of catch last week to get there. I mean, he obviously is the primary passing weapon there, but that's not really saying too much. Kind of a stay away for me. Again, the matchup is pretty great. I mean, Miami has been given it up against passing offenses all season, but just that game starts, I'm going to be feeling pretty thin about how that current offense is playing, and I don't want any overs there. Connor, what are your thoughts?
No, I totally agree. I think that's spot on here. And then we have some a little bit of news here. Lamar Jackson officially ruled out mid-show. I guess that was kind of expected, at least in my opinion. One last look before you guys hop off. Pat mentioned it last week. Curtis Samuel overs with Carson Wentz back went 5 for 52 last week. Pretty solid spot here as well. I think this could be another great week to bet some overs on him. He's like an automatic 5 receptions for 50 yards. So.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
What was the number being spit out?
There's no number yet. I don't see one, but it was just on my list of things to bet an over on for sure.
Yeah, let me see. That looks like nothing. No, it looks like he's not posted, but they have Dotson's posted and McLaurin's posted. Dotson at 44.5.
I'm interested in McLaurin.
50. So FanDuel is 56.5. Points bet 55.5.
That's low.
Yeah, and 44.5 for Dotson. DraftKings, MGM, Caesars have not entered. You rarely see FanDuel or PointsBet be first in the market for anything. So they are here and ready to get your Commanders money.
I got Curtis Samuel 4 catches, 48 yards.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's going to be well below that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. It's a good look. All right, gents. It's good. Anything else for the people before we wrap it up?
That's it for me.
Pat, where can everyone find your stuff?
Mayo Media Network and the One and Done. So let's try to fill that up. I wonder how many spots remain. It doesn't start for another 2 weeks. It starts at the Sony Open. But this happens every year. Noonan, you know about this, where people will be like, they're going to kick their heels on it, be like, oh, I really want to play. I'll make sure I do that next week. And then all of a sudden they just don't do it. It's almost half full now. And we really haven't started promoting it yet.
Getting the One and Done. It's fun. It's a fun way to gamble on golf. Like Pat said, it is super cheap relative to the entertainment value that you get out of the course of an entire season. Basically, this will take you into late August. Pretty simple One and Done. You pick a golfer to win the tournament every week. You can only use him once during the season. You get his prize money as your points for the season, and competitive field through obviously everyone that tunes into Pat for golf stuff, and nice little prize money at the end too. So set yourself a reminder on your phone when you do so. Wednesday nights, maybe Wednesday afternoon sometimes, because you get some of that golf sometimes overseas or different stuff. Set yourself an alarm so you don't miss your guy. Otherwise,
you don't even need to do that. You can just type in your phone number into the system, and it will send you a text alert of that. Hey, you haven't made a pick yet. You should make a pick.
Can't beat it.
There we are. Easy stuff.
My guy Sam C wants to know where he can get it. Just another reminder.
FantasyGolfChampionships.com.
All right. Connor, tacos, tequila. What else is coming from you?
Yep. Meeting up with our boss behind the scenes, Luis, for some Kobe steaks tonight and a lot of tequila. So very excited about that. We'll have a bunch of more props coming in the next few days, getting down on them in my, unconventional ways down here in Mexico. But, I'll find a way to get some action down myself and continue printing out winners for you and tailing your tackle props.
Love it. Yeah, you get 365 while you're down there. So might have to send you some money and find a way to make some of this work this week. So
let's do it.
Yeah. Good stuff as always, gents. Enjoy the new year. Thanks for everyone hanging out with us. We will be back for the shit show that is week 18. But there will be props to be bet on. And, you don't have to worry about dealing with all that stuff. We'll be here to handle it for you. So for Pat and Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see you all next week.